Chair Relay.
All right, we'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, December 18th, 2025. If we can start with roll call.
Chair Denizen,
Here.
Vice Chair Simcock,
Here.
Commissioner Brennan,
Here.
Commissioner Moran,
Here.
and Commissioner Yu.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First, I will seek approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next up is our council liaison report. Mayor Pro Tem Goss, congratulations.
Greetings, everyone. I guess that's kind of the news for tonight. We had our reorg meeting on Tuesday, and we honored Robert Parker's service as mayor going out, and we elected Chris Lowe as our new mayor, and she's out there mayoring right now, and they elected me as mayor pro tem, so I'm really honored for that, and looking forward to a fun year. And our next meeting is January 13th. I know I have not looked at the agenda yet, but I'll take any other questions. Okay. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. All right, next up is community input. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not on the agenda. The Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the Commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. And we will start with comment cards first.
Chair, we received one comment card. Ann Petlat.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Ann Patlin, and this is my mother, Martha Patlin. We live at 704 Valley Vista Drive, and behind our property is the canyon, and there's a lot of like brush, a lot of fire hazard there, and so like we just wanted to find out if whoever owned that property would be able to do some fire clearing. I don't know if that's a question you can help us with.
They're building nine houses, or they're gonna build right behind. They're gonna build something. They're gonna use 9 acres, so I don't know if it's right behind our house.
So we're not supposed to directly answer public comment. We're supposed to take it and file it. I always recommend people who have questions about any kind of brush abatement reach out to the fire department through their non-emergency line.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we weren't sure if the owner there would be able to, or, I don't know.
Yep, the commission will have nothing to do with
Oh.
either identification or enforcement of any kind of brush abatement.
Okay,
This
thank
is our
you.
first time, so sorry.
I appreciate you bringing it up. They'll be able to help you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to make public comment about an item not on tonight's agenda? All right. Next up, consent. Approval of the December 4th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Does anybody have any updates or changes they would like to see?
I have a correction. In the minutes, when in the December 4th minutes, approving the October 16th meeting minutes, it was noted there was an abstention from myself, but I believe that was Commissioner Moran, and so that just needs to be adjusted. But I would defer to Commissioner Moran to clarify, but it has me abstaining. So if we can just make that adjustment, I think for the record, that would be great.
Noted. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other corrections? I will seek adoption of the minutes with the suggested correction.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the suggested correction.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. you said yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Motion carries unanimously. Next up is the cancellation of the regular Planning Commission meeting on January 1st, 2026. This is a consent. Do we need a motion on it?
No.
Just notification?
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Next up is public hearings. We will first start with disclosures of any site visits or ex parte contacts.
No specific.
Not,
Yeah.
nothing since the last meeting.
Oh, thanks.
All right. First public hearing is a discretionary demolition permit, DDP 25-03, a request to allow the complete demolition of an existing single-family residence built in 1910, and design review permit 25-01, a request for the construction or addition of one or more dwelling units that result in a site with 3 or more dwelling units. This is continued from December 4th, 2025.
Thank you, Chair. We do have a brief report from staff, and we'd also like to recommend that the Planning Commission open this item up for public comment as well. And that report will be from Assistant Planner Wong.
Great.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Planning Commission. Just to provide a brief update for the application for discretionary demolition permit and the design review permit for the property located at 81 Victoria Lane. City staff and city attorney have met with the Department of Housing and Community Development to obtain clarification for a state law cited in the applicant's proposal. And based on that discussion, it was determined that the referenced state law does not govern this proposal or the project. So following that determination, staff did meet with the applicant, and he has indicated that he will be exploring different design concepts for this property, and is also withdrawing his current application for the design review and the discretionary review, as it was based on the statutory provisions that were not applicable. I would also like to advise the commission that any future proposal for this property may or may not require the Planning Commission's review, depending on the type of application or entitlements required for the specific proposal. As Senior Planner Wolf mentioned, we do recommend that the commission open the floor for public comment tonight. And that completes my report, if the commission has any questions for me.
Any questions for staff? And so I have one question. The continuation to a date certain that's recommended is to, in case there is something that does need to come before the Planning Commission, that they will aim for that so that they don't have to renotice?
The recommendation on the agenda is a remnant from a time that we did not know what the result of the HCD response would be. So at this time, there is no recommended action for the Planning Commission to take, and the applicant, as I understand, will be withdrawing his application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will accept public comment on this particular agendized item. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes to ensure an orderly meeting, and please state your name and address for the record.
Chair, we did receive 3 comments via email, which were all forwarded to the Planning Commission for their consideration.
Thank you. I received them and reviewed them, so we did receive them. Thank you. All right, so no action to take on this at this time. Okay. Next up, tentative track map 65348, certification of an environmental impact report and approval of a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for a proposed 9-lot residential subdivision located at 935 and 965 East Grandview Avenue. Does staff have a report?
Thank you, Chair. I think we're getting a little bit of technical difficulty, so just bear with me one moment. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, the Commission will be reviewing the Ginkgo Stonehouse residential project. It'll be a consideration for the certification of the environmental impact report, a tentative tract map, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program. For brief introductions, we have city staff here present, myself as well as Chief Bartlett are here. We have team from the Ginkgo Stonehouse LLC that we have Chad Stadicki and Steve Austin. We also have VCS Environmental, who's the city's consultant doing the environmental review and who had prepared the environmental impact reports. Representing, we have Eric Turner here tonight. Planning Commission's authority tonight is as advisory to our City Council. The recommendation will include certification of the environmental impact report, approval of the tentative tract map, and approval of the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Future considerations may include Planning Commission's approval of hillside development permits for construction of a primary single-family home at each lot. The outline for tonight's presentation starts with staff's presentation, followed by the applicant's presentation. The Planning Commission at that time can pose any questions they have for the applicant, staff, or the city's consultant. Then it'll be a time for the public to comment on tonight's public hearing, then the close of the public comment, followed by Planning Commission's deliberations and a recommendation possibly to City Council. I also want to note that at any time during this presentation, the Planning Commission may interrupt for questions to staff. So the project is located within the eastern portion of the city, north of Grandview Avenue at 935 and 965 East Grandview Avenue. As you can see from the highlighted in the blue area, this is the scope of the project. At one point in time, it was including the portion you see shaded in red. It is no longer a part of that project. There are 64 protected trees within the buildable area of the site. It's in existing condition. Along with at 935 East Grandview Avenue, there is a single-family dwelling of 1,700 square feet. And at 965 East Grandview Avenue, there are 3 single-family dwellings, 1,800, 1,400, and 1,500 square feet each. The land use of the site is within the hillside land use designation. It's also zoned for residential hillside development. And I'd like to turn it over now to our Deputy City Attorney to go over the contractual background and history of part of the history of this project.
I believe you guys received 3 documents leading up to this, and this is just an outline of what each of those is a part of in terms of the timeline. So originally, as a result of litigation, there was a settlement agreement in 2010, which was between the city, CS Stonehouse, and CS1 Carter. There's a CS Stonehouse property and a CS1 Carter property, and it established the development rights pertaining to, at issue tonight, the CS Stonehouse property and project. And at that time, there was also a consideration of the development of the 1 Carter property as well. Subsequent to this settlement agreement, there was a tolling agreement entered partially as a result of the intention to transfer interest from CS Stonehouse to what I'm referred to as Ginkgo 1. And this is also to avoid relitigating some of the things that were developed in the settlement agreement. After that, there was the transfer of interest to Ginkgo 1. Ginkgo 1 then transferred part of its interest to Ginkgo 2, who has since transferred its whole interest to, I don't know if it's CYTS or Sites USA. Since then, to keep the tolling agreement current and extend the deadline for development to occur, we have had several tolling agreements, and we have most recently approved the 14th tolling agreement, which extended the term until June 30th, 2027. And I believe there's the next slide, which provides a more graphical overview of what I just described. The project in consideration, the applicant is Ginkgo 1, which you'll see on the left-hand side. And this is all for the CS Stonehouse property that was part of the settlement agreement, which was one of 2 properties in that settlement agreement.
Just for clarification and history, can I just ask the original, going back in time, so we really have parcel 3 and 4, which is at issue here today. Parcels 1 and 2 are owned by whom at this point?
CYTS.
So all 4 parcels are still owned by CYTS,
Uh,
or now owned by CYTS.
Ownership of parcels 1 and 2, which are on the right-hand side of the slide, are under ownership by CYTS.
Mm-hmm.
And on the left-hand side of the slide is now under ownership by Ginkgo 1.
Ginkgo 1.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right, so separate ownership,
Correct.
legally at least.
Separate ownership and separate interests.
Okay. Thank you.
So the project here in question includes the 4 acres of passive open space that span, as proposed, over 2 of the proposed subdivided lots. Those 4 acres include non-buildable area, brush management, and fuel modification. The whole subdivision includes 9 single-family residential lots, of which will include custom homes, and a new private street with a driveway for fire access road that ends at a hammerhead turnaround, and a cul-de-sac with connections to East Grandview, utility connections to East Grandview Avenue. Street A is a 32-foot wide curb-to-curb street, and the fire access road stems off the end of the bulb of the cul-de-sac. It is 20 feet wide. It includes a curb on one side and a rolled curb and gutter on the other side. It also abuts a crib wall that varies in height from 2 to 20 feet. The grading for this project will be roughly 13,000 cubic yards of earthwork, both cut and fill, so it is not going to require any export or import. For a summary of the environmental impacts, it was determined that there were many environmental issues reviewed, and the table you see in green are issues that are determined not to have any impact by the project. Those include aesthetics, air quality, agriculture and forestry resources, energy, greenhouse gas emissions, hydrology and water quality, land use and planning, mineral resources, population and housing, public services, recreation, transportation, and utilities and service systems. In the blue table, you'll see that the environmental report concluded that there are issues that have less than a significant impact with mitigation. Those include biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, noise, tribal cultural resources, and wildfire. To go over some of the key points and issues, the first one I'd like to cover is water supply and utilities. The public comments we received during the EIR process include concerns that new residential development would strain local water resources. There were also questions regarding long-term water reliability during drought conditions, and there were requests to protect existing regional water infrastructure. The final EIR finds and responds to these comments by saying that there is adequate water supply confirmed through 2045 under normal, single dry, and multiple dry year conditions. The project is consistent with the city's urban water management plan, and it is in compliance with Cal Green water efficiency standards as required. And there are no impacts to the Metropolitan Water District facilities that are anticipated, but there are going to be standard utilities coordination conditions required. Thus, under CEQA determination, for water supply and utilities, the project has less than a significant impact and no mitigation is required. Moving on to circulation, there were comments received regarding concerns of traffic congestion and neighborhood circulation impacts. There were also questions about the adequacy of transportation analysis. And the EIR found and responded to these comments by saying that the transportation impacts analyzed were using vehicle miles traveled pursuant to SB 743. The project generates approximately 47 net daily trips, which is below the threshold for a more focused VMT analysis, which at the county level is 110 trips by a project. Caltrans also concurred that no additional VMT analysis was required, and parking and level of service are not CEQA impact criteria. Thus, the environmental report determines that circulation has less than a significant impact by the project. Moving on to biological resources, we received public comment of potential loss of natural habitat and sensitive vegetation communities. There were requests to minimize grading and preserve hillside resources, and there was support for reduced development alternatives. The EIR finds and responds to these concerns by saying that the development is concentrated in previously disturbed portions of the site, that there will be approximately 4 acres designated as permanent non-buildable open space within the northern portion of the site. No state or federally listed species were detected during the focused surveys, and mitigation measures do include pre-construction surveys, tree replacement, and habitat protection. There is a reduced lot size design alternative identified as environmentally superior through the proposed project, also results in less than significant impacts with mitigation. Thus, when it comes to biological resources, the environmental report determines that the project has less than a significant impact with mitigation measures incorporated. Moving on to wildlife and fire safety, we received public comments, concerns regarding impacts to wildlife, such as mountain lions, bats, and nesting birds. There were also concerns regarding long-term habitat impacts from fuel modification. And the EIR finds in response to these comments by saying that the wildlife surveys were conducted and no listed species were observed. Expanded mitigation adopted for bat protection, including seasonal surveys and compensatory roosting habitat if needed. Fuel modification required pursuant to city's fire code and reviewed at building permit stage. And vegetation management is balanced with biological mitigation and open space preservation. Thus, when it comes to wildlife and fire safety, the project has less than a significant impact on the environment with mitigation measures incorporated. Moving on to aesthetics, we received public comment concerns that the project would alter the hillside and rural character of Sierra Madre. There were concerns regarding night lighting impacts on wildlife and nearby residences. The EIR responds to this by saying that the project complies with hillside management standards and general plan policies and will be further subject by condition approval to get the hillside development permit for the construction of the single-family homes. The grading is minimized in steeper areas of the site. There is a permanent restrictive easement which limits further future development in sensitive hillside areas of the northern portion of the site. And the development will be subject to lighting requirements to comply with the city's dark sky ordinance and shielding requirements. Thus, for aesthetics, it is determined through the EIR that there is a less than significant impact, no mitigation is required. These are all standard conditions. For the alternatives analysis and comparison, on the left-hand side of the slide, you see the project as proposed. It includes the 9 lots that you saw earlier. Alternative 1 is a standard alternative pursuant to CEQA of no project. We analyze and compare that. As you see, it doesn't change the site at all. And alternative 2 is a reduced lot size design. It also includes 9 single-family lots, but as compared to the proposed project, it would not require the fire access turnaround road with a hammerhead, nor would it require that 2 to 20 foot crib wall at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Due to the settlement, is alternative 1 even possible?
For purposes of CEQA, it's necessary that we analyze a no project alternative, but contractually, the development standards are established by the settlement agreement.
Okay.
So in comparing the alternatives with respect to the environmental issues, there are a laundry list of items here that were determined not to have any impact by the project, and alternative 2 has a lesser impact when it comes to air quality, energy, and greenhouse gas emissions. I'm not going to go over alternative 1 unless the commission would prefer I do. And when it comes to the issues that need to be mitigated, the proposed project compared with alternative 2 has a lesser impact on biological resources and noise. I also want to highlight that the proposed project does have project objectives. The proposed project does meet 3 of the 6 project objectives and mostly meets the remaining 3 of 6 project objectives, but alternative 1, the no project alternative, will not meet 2 of the objectives. The first is the development of the site, the second being meeting the city's needs for regional housing assessment. Alternative 2 is much like the proposed project. It does meet the same 3 objectives and mostly meets the other 3 objectives. For Planning Commission's consideration of the EIR certification, summary of findings include that the final EIR is an accurate and objective statement that has been completed in compliance with all of CEQA guidelines. The Planning Commission reviewed the final EIR and considered its information prior to making a decision. The final EIR reflects the independent judgment and analysis of the city. And finally, environmental impacts associated with the project are either less than significant and do not require mitigation, or are potentially significant but will be avoided or reduced to a level of insignificance through the identified mitigation measures and monitoring program. These findings are set forth in Section 2 in greater detail of Planning Commission Resolution 25-14, and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program is included in the final EIR. For Planning Commission's consideration of the tentative tract map, the summary of findings include that the proposed map and design or improvement of the proposed subdivision are consistent with the Sierra Madre General Plan. The site is physically suitable for single-family development in the hillside at the density proposed by the development. The design of the subdivision or the proposed improvements are not likely to cause substantial environmental damage or substantially and unavoidably injure fish or wildlife or their habitat. The design of the subdivision or the type of improvements is not likely to cause serious public health problems. And finally, the design of the subdivision or the type of improvements will not conflict with easements acquired by the public at large for access through or use of the property within the proposed subdivision. These findings are articulated in better detail within Section 3.4 of the Planning Commission Resolution 25-14. The alternatives and options for the Planning Commission tonight include to provide a recommendation to the City Council to take the action of certifying the environmental impact report, adopting the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approving the project as proposed. Second option is providing another recommendation, just a recommendation that the City Council take the action of certifying the EIR and adopting the MMRP and approving the tract map with the condition that it be in substantial conformance with Project Alternative 2, a reduced lot size design. That is coming in with further finding of compliance with statutory regulations that find that the Alternative 2 is an environmentally superior project. The third option for the Commission tonight is to continue the application under consideration to a date certain, providing staff and the applicant with direction. And the last option tonight, I don't believe this is exhaustive, but the last option here is to provide the recommendation that City Council certify the EIR, adopt the MMRP, but deny the application under consideration with cited applicable findings that the Planning Commission cannot make. Staff is recommending, based on all the evidence provided tonight, that Planning Commission provide their recommendation to City Council to certify the EIR, adopt the MMRP, and approve the tract map with the condition that it be in substantial conformance with Project Alternative 2 for a reduced lot size design, further based on the environmentally superior project. That concludes my presentation. We do have a presentation from the applicant, but I will take questions from the Commission beforehand.
I'm certain we have questions for you. Who wants to start? I have a bunch, but I'm happy to let other people go first. Okay. So I just want to make sure that I have my history right. A long time ago, these two projects were up for development, and based on some disagreements between the city and the developers at that time as to how complete their applications were, a subsequent set of hillside management zoning was adopted. I'm guessing significantly more restrictive than the ones that the initial project had been submitted under. Am I right so far?
That's correct.
And so, as a result, rather than litigating, the city took the path of agreeing to a settlement that dictated, as we remember from when we started doing the One Carter properties, what the size of the square footage of the house, the FAR is allowed, and how big the building pad could be, details like that. And so, very similar to those of us that remember the One Carter properties that we looked at, there is a predetermined settlement that governs the size of the lot that is, or the size of the houses that are allowed, and generally a map of what the tract should look like. Is that right so far?
One small correction, that there was actually some litigation, and what was not resolved is the result of the settlement agreement.
Okay, thank you. And so some of the documents that you sent us, like the MOU, was basically Ginkgo 1 saying CS telling Ginkgo that they are vested in all of the rights and titles that were part of the settlement. And then Ginkgo 2, by purchasing from Ginkgo 1 a portion of that, got some of those same rights, and then those again got passed on to CTSK, whatever it is. CYTS, thank you, to CYTS. But there's not an agreement that's in place the same way that there is from CS to Ginkgo.
No, but I would just like to point out that part of that agreement is that Ginkgo 1 contractually binds any of the other
Successors and assigns.
Yeah, which is how CYTS is covered through.
Got it. Okay. And so, in layman's terms, the original settlement has been, the custody of that settlement has been passed down owner to owner for that property.
Correct.
Okay. I know that we have this tolling agreement. I assume there's probably likewise on the other property as well. Is that because the settlement would be dissolved if the city no longer honored the terms of the settlement and the tolling agreement allows that building period to get extended?
If the settlement ran out, then the potential for litigation would reopen, and this is a way that we have also contractually established some development that's different than state law as well, so it would be in everybody's best interest to develop under the settlement agreement rather than take it outside of the tolling agreement or settlement agreement.
Okay. That segues perfectly to the next question I was going to ask, which is why the change to the second alternative from the first alternative?
Because of CEQA's obligation that a public agency minimize any of the environmental harm, there are two areas where if mitigation was not in place, there would be significant impacts, and they would be lessened or decreased by taking alternative 2. So in line with statutory authority for our discretion to approve alternatives, alternative 2 creates lesser significant impacts where there would be without mitigation. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I guess I was asking, yes, that answered that part of the question. And so is alternative 2, was that put forth by the developer or that was put forth by the city?
by the developer
Okay. In response to concerns from the city.
as a requirement of CEQA.
Okay.
There has to be a consideration of alternatives during the analysis, and so that's where this was developed out of.
So after the EIR was produced, or the draft EIR was circulated, then they read what was in there and came up with alternative 2?
Alternative 2, I believe, was designed early on in the process. That might be a better question for our consultant.
Okay.
Me to just comment on that?
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah, good evening. VCS Environmental, my name's Eric Turner, working on this environmental impact report on behalf of the city. So yeah, CEQA requires a reasonable amount of alternatives to be evaluated as part of the process. For a site this small, that can be tricky, and especially a site this small that already has legal binding obligations on it. So the no project alternative is essentially a requirement for every CEQA document. And so that's why that was included. The smaller or more concentrated development footprint alternative, that was considered as a way to potentially lessen impacts on the site, however, still remain consistent with the requirements of the settlement agreement, if that helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And so above the open space, I think lot 2 is what we've referred to it as. If this is lot 1, then lot 2 being the eastern, northern part of the settlement.
We're talking about the lots under separate ownership?
Yes. Everything that has to do with that is still those rights are alive and well under probably a separate tolling agreement. So nothing that we do here will affect that. They could come back next week, the separate ownership, and say we're gonna now build these and go through the EIR process and do everything that is happening with this one. Right, they're completely disintermediated.
They will be subject to the same terms of the settlement agreement that is currently under review. So it'll be a similar project and similar statutory requirements and contractual requirements, but a different project and a different project site.
So can I just clarify that? So under the settlement agreement, so we're talking, again, here we're talking about parcel 3 and 4 originally. Parcel 1 and 2, the larger part, and the northern boundary. So if we were with separate ownership, looking at a different project that was under parcel 1, there were, I believe under the settlement agreement, there's roughly 10, there were 10 lots proposed under that. So again, back to Deputy City Attorney, I think you asked this question, but I just want to clarify. So the settlement agreement binds the current owner, CYTS, of those separate properties now, in essence. So we would be, whatever the settlement agreement, I think the settlement agreement said there was 10 units allowed for those separate properties. We would be looking at those separate properties, 10 units, to look at an EIR, a new project, based on
If
the
I'm
way.
following what you're suggesting, that's correct. And it would be, like you're insinuating, a similar process separate
Right.
for that
Right.
set of.
But I believe the settlement agreement is restricted to 10 lots on that, in the settlement agreement for parcel 1, or parcel 1 is the way I read it.
I can double check in the settlement agreement and confirm that, but I believe that your recollection.
Basically bordering the eastern strip of parcel 1 and kind of moving up to the northern side of it, right?
And from what I can recall, that you are correct. There's this parcel 2, which is off of Camillo. It's a very narrow lot that would include one single-family
Right.
development.
Okay.
Yeah. Parcels 10 through 19 as proposed.
I guess to put it in plainly, if we approve this as is, right? So on parcel 3 and 4, under today's consideration for this project, we're looking at 9 lots. If the other portion under separate ownership gets developed per the settlement agreement, and that holds. And then we were looking at another 10 units, 10 lots bordering the eastern side of what was originally parcel 1.
Correct.
That's
So,
correct.
sounds roughly correct. Okay, thank you.
There were specific conditions of approval. Is that something that is subject to our review, or was that some kind of an agreement with the developers, or what is the nature of the specific conditions of approval? I think they're on page 28 of the packet.
Those conditions can be reviewed and amended by the Planning Commission tonight in consideration.
I did have some questions about those specifically, if we wanted to look at those. So specific condition number 15, it has specified hours for construction and days. Now, currently they conform to Chapter 9.32 of noise, which we just updated. But is there a reason we wouldn't point to the then current noise code rather than putting one that could create a non-conforming situation?
That is something we can amend, yes. It would be under the same rules as you see in the language there on condition number 15, but it would be subject if we do amend that code to abide by those conditions instead.
The only reason I can think of to leave it as is instead of referencing is just that it makes it easier to find, but otherwise it's at your discretion to change that to be a statute reference.
How long will they have to build this project?
The approval of the tentative track map subjects them to a 2-year implementation of the project in which they need to do the grading and site improvements, after which they would have to file for the final map. Within that time, they would not be required to complete all the construction of the 9 homes. They would only need to complete the grading and surface improvements of the site,
And
including utilities.
right. And so then the actual building would be up to, it wouldn't start for at least 2 years, likely.
It would not, but they could apply for their entitlements at that time, and we can put those into consideration over the 2 years or past the 2 years.
So is it likely that there will be some kind of an agreement, a development agreement between the city and the developer that dictates terms like this? I know that we had one recently where they had up to 10 years to build all of the properties. And so I'm trying to get a scope for how long this could potentially go on to see if it's worth changing to conform to the code, right? When I saw that we were on our 14th tolling agreement, I thought it might be, I'm sure that we've changed the noise ordinance more than twice in those 14 years. So I just wanted to make sure that we were setting ourselves up for success on this. So my question was, is it likely that there will be a development agreement between the developer and the city to govern the development of these properties?
There hasn't been any consideration or request for development agreement from the applicant, as far as I understand. And the 14th tolling agreement does run until June of 2027. We can do a 15th if that is necessary to stay the terms of the settlement agreement.
And so after they've gotten their final track map, then the permits to build are, well, how long do you have to get your entitlements after that?
Once you apply, it's just a matter of how long it takes to complete the application, and it's scheduled to the Planning Commission. But once the entitlement is approved, they have 1 year to execute it, and execution requires a submittal of the plan check construction plans.
Okay. Okay. So then I would recommend that for number 15, just in case the noise ordinance does conform.
And one way that we could address it that would cover both is if you see number 7, it provides what the period is and then as provided by, and then the section, we could give still the same language and then say, or as provided by.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the more places we put this so that people can see it, the better. Because I agree with you that it can be hard to find that. In number 17, oh, I'm sorry, I want to back up and ask a bigger question. The whole settlement had to do with hillside zone and which hillside zone was going to be effective. I think I heard you say that the building standards would be to the hillside zone. Which hillside zone?
The current hillside management zone development standards, unless they are overridden or preempted by the settlement agreement.
Okay. And are they overridden by the settlement agreement?
I believe the settlement agreement, or I should say, I know that the settlement agreement includes development rights for things like floor area, building floor area, and I believe it also includes height and some exceptions for things like parking, but otherwise would have to require with other standards like setbacks, grading, and height of retaining walls and so forth.
And I think today in the hillside management zone, you have to come before the planning commission for design review of some kind. Is that correct?
There's no design, unlike the CS1 Carter case where there are 1 Carter design guidelines, there are no applicable design guidelines for Stonehouse. So there will be a hillside development permit in which the planning commission will review under findings for hillside development permit, which are somewhat similar to design review.
Okay. That's what I conflated. Thank you. In specific condition number 17, I recall recently we had a three parcel on Highland that we did an HOA for, and we had to approve the, was it some governing document? Is that the same thing that will apply here?
It would apply to the management of brush abatement, fuel modification, and the management of the private road.
So in a previous session, we actually had to review the, was it the bylaws, I think? So will the bylaws for this HOA come before us the same way that the previous one did? Or was that different because it was considered a different?
Doesn't seem to be expressly written on here that it's considered by the planning commission, but that might be something we can include.
There's no statute that requires it to come before the planning commission, but we could make a condition that it come before the planning commission.
Okay. I thought the one that we reviewed previously was by statute, so that's why
I believe it was within like a contractual obligation that it was approved.
Okay.
But not within our code.
Okay. Let me see what specific condition number 22 was. Thanks for your patience as I flip back and forth between all these documents.
Can I ask a question in the meantime? It seems like with the kind of environmental impact and the proposed alternatives, obviously a no project is always going to fare better than the original proposal. It seems likely that secondary proposals given by the applicant are with the intent of potentially having better environmental impacts, or lesser rather. Is that typically the case where the primary one, the alternatives to that always have lesser than the primary? Or do people propose alternatives that might have more impact than the primary?
It is a project by project determination. The alternatives are proposed by the applicant.
Yeah.
And in some other cases, there have been much different projects, but the circumstances of which vary due to the nature of the project. I could give examples.
I was just wondering about the typical like profile of these that you see, whether it's typically the alternatives are lesser or whether it varies. It seems like it varies. Sometimes the alternatives are more, sometimes they're less.
It should be the alternatives would be to further your likelihood that it gets EIR approved. So hypothetically, the alternative should have lesser environmental impact.
That would be
However,
most often.
Yeah.
But you're not guaranteed, or they may
Right.
have a mix and the findings be not as predicted or something like that. So typically the secondary would be lesser. So my follow-on question is, when we get these as the city, do we always choose not the primary? Because it seems almost always it's going to be lesser impact, the secondary.
In past cases, the city has chosen the proposed,
Okay.
and the alternative has been not environmentally superior.
Yeah. So this alternative does seem to be environmentally superior, but not significantly so based on those charts, according to my understanding. Was there a particular reason why with this one, even though it wasn't large, that the city wanted to go with the alternative?
Well, there are only 8 areas that have significant impacts without mitigation, and 2 of those 8 are lessened by alternative 2. So depending on what you consider a great effect or not, it's still hitting 2 out of the 8 areas, which gives us good reason to approve alternative 2. Aside from that, it's still substantially similar to alternative 1. It's not like greatly different, which makes it an appealing option. Or I shouldn't, alternative, as proposed, not alternative.
An appealing option potentially to the developer as well, you mean?
Correct.
And that they're fairly similar.
Correct. Do you have anything to add?
No, thank you. That was good.
In condition number 22, it has to do with stormwater runoff. It doesn't seem to dictate that there has to be some kind of a catch basin or not. Is that fairly standard for a project this size to not have some kind of a catch basin dictated?
Individual lots will be subject to the low impact development requirements. Each lot will include its own individual catchment basin or something similar to capture stormwater runoff. That's a standard requirement, so it's not per se a condition of approval that goes any different than what the city requires standardly for all development within the city.
Okay, and all new development has to tie into sewers as well?
That's correct.
Okay. It looks like our fire chief is still here. If I could ask him a question? Chief, have you seen the 2 alternatives that are before us?
I have seen them this evening was the first
Okay.
time I've seen them.
Okay. I didn't know if you had an opinion on which of those 2 turnarounds for your engines was more attractive. In the light of this year's events, I could see making a finding for more access to the fire department. And so that's why I wondered.
The good question, and I'll refrain from a personal choice on this. Either alternative is sufficient to code, and either would work.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I think those are all of my questions. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. If the developer would like to come up and give us the presentation.
Is the mic on? Yeah. Good evening and happy holidays. I'm Chad Stadnicki, a representative for Ginkgo Stonehouse, or otherwise known as Ginkgo One, the developer. I'm joined tonight by Steve Austin, the project engineer. Unfortunately, Homer Yin, the manager for Ginkgo Stonehouse, couldn't attend. He had some holiday travel planned this week, so he couldn't make it. But I should be able, between Steve and myself, we should be able to answer any of your questions. I want to first thank the Commission for your time and consideration tonight. I also want to acknowledge everyone in the audience, including my son who just got back from college. This is his first Planning Commission meeting, so I thought I'd give him a little taste of how things are done. So hopefully you learned something. And I also want to acknowledge staff for their efforts in processing our application. As mentioned, in staff's presentation, the Stonehouse project has a lengthy history, and it's got some unique characteristics, I would call it. So I'd like to spend a few moments kind of going over our involvement in the project. When we purchased the site in the early teens, I think it was around 2011 perhaps, we assumed the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement, as discussed, had a settlement plan in it. And the settlement plan is the basis for development of the site. And it's shown up here on the screen. The plan shown here allowed for 19 lots. There's another lot that's kind of off on the side, which is the 20th lot, but for the intents and purposes of kind of our looking at the project, it's 19 lots for the main project. And our project today, which is Ginkgo 1, is the outlined portion of the site in red. About a year after purchasing the project, we sold the larger eastern portion to an individual, Jeff Ying, who intended to develop that portion of the site for his own personal and family use. And he originally proposed to only basically create 3 lots over that portion of the site. And at that point, we worked together and we decided to prepare a new development plan for the project that had 13 lots in total, 10 on our side, and 3 on Jeffrey's piece. So in 2013, 2014, we conducted a series of public meetings, community meetings, where we presented that plan. If you go to the next slide, please. Oh, well, my slides are out of order. Okay, yeah, this is the revised plan that I just discussed, 10 plus 3, 10 on our portion, 3 on their portion. The original settlement plan had 19 lots. If you go to the next slide, please. Yes, in 2013, 2014, we had a series of these community meetings. This is a photo of one that we had on site, and we gave presentations, presented the project, took community input into the project. In fact, we also had a working session or a study session, I should say. I think it was with City Council. It might have been with Planning Commission. My memory's a little bit fuzzy about which board we actually had that study session with. But we presented the project to that body as well. And based on the feedback from the community meetings and from staff and from either the Planning Commission or City Council, we reduced the lot count on our portion back to 9 lots, which was what was originally contemplated in the settlement agreement. Tragically, Jeff Ying unexpectedly died in an accident before we were able to submit a formal application for that proposal. And it took quite a few years after his death to resolve ownership of that piece. So we were kind of in limbo, and that kind of partially explains why kind of the timeline of this is stretched out. But ownership was finally resolved, and the project was sold, as staff indicated earlier, the legal counsel indicated earlier, to another group relatively recently. And there is an agreement between Ginkgo 1 and the successor, Ginkgo 2, that they basically limit the development of that portion of the site to the 3 units that Jeffrey Ying intended to develop it as. So I think that still holds. That's not necessarily covered by the settlement agreement, but there is an agreement between when that transfer of ownership took place that limits the development of that site to 3 units. So it gets even a little more complicated. But anyway, so tonight we are seeking approval for the 9-lot subdivision on the western portion of the site that is consistent. And if you can change the slide, please. This just shows the current plan compared to the settlement plan, and then shows Jeffrey's piece as not a part. But, you know, tonight we were requesting approval for the 9-lot subdivision, you know, that is consistent with the settlement agreement and plan, and that also is responsive to staff and the community comments it received over the years. Before concluding, I'd like to ask the commission to approve the project as proposed and not the EIR alternative recommended by staff. We feel that the current plan and its larger lot sizes makes a better project, and we also think it's a little more compatible with the community. The current minimum lot size on our plan is 20,000 square feet. On alternative 2, that goes down to about 16,000 square feet. Furthermore, we disagree with staff's rationale and findings for elevating alternative 2 in the draft resolution. To help explain, I'd like to refer to a few sections of the resolution and EIR, if that's okay. On page 2 of the resolution, draft resolution, the bottom paragraph under section 2 EIR. The resolution states, if you can pull it up, that the Planning Commission finds that the change incorporated into the project by project alternative 2, if you'd like me to pause while it gets up, I can.
It's page, I think, 41 of the.
It's in section 2.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's the bottom paragraph, please. Okay, it says, the Planning Commission finds that the change incorporated into the project by project alternative 2 reduced lot size design, as further identified in the project EIR, avoids or substantially lessens the significant environmental impacts of the project as proposed. This is not consistent with the EIR findings. On page 6-16 of the EIR, under alternative 2 conclusion, the EIR states that alternative 2 would have a substantially similar impact on 15 of the issue areas and only marginally lesser impacts on 5. Marginally lesser is not the same as substantially lessen. Furthermore, the next sentence, as identified in the EIR, project alternative 2, reduced lot size design, is an environmentally superior project. According to the EIR, this statement shouldn't be made. According to the EIR, under requirements of alternative analysis, it states only those impacts found significant and unavoidable are relevant in making the final determination of whether an alternative is environmentally superior or inferior to the proposed project.
What page is that on, please?
That is on page 6.2 of the environmental impact report under environmentally superior alternative under requirements of alternative analysis, section 6.2. And I could give you these sections again. That's on 6.2. This is under the draft EIR, not the final EIR. And I'm no expert, and that's why I have Eric here probably. But my understanding of that language, if correct, is that if it's not found to be significant and unavoidable, then that can't be a basis for choosing or elevating the alternative over the original proposal in accordance with CEQA. And the EIR determined on page 6-19 that there were no significant unavoidable adverse impacts for the project as is, or as proposed. What I just quoted was on the next page, on 6.2. Under environmentally superior alternative.
Page 334 of the final EIR. Did you have?
So, I mean, again, we think the original proposal, the original design is the appropriate design. We think it's the one that we've been working with for years. It's the one that we've, gotten feedback from the community on. The alternative 2, while we did prepare it, I don't want to say we prepared that alternative under duress, but we were basically instructed that we couldn't choose a higher lot count, even though that was what one of our alternatives was. So we had to, at staff's direction, we had to come up with an alternative to be included in the EIR. But it's not the preferred alternative from our standpoint. And again, we don't think we don't think it makes a better project. And we don't think it's necessarily environmentally, we question the ability to say that the alternative 2 is environmentally superior, just based on the findings in the EIR. Let's see. I think that concludes my remarks. I thank you again for your consideration. Steve and I are both here and available for any questions that you have of us. Again, thank you for your time.
Let me ask a
Yeah,
question.
questions for the applicant?
I was wondering if you could go into a little bit more depth about why you prefer your proposed versus the alternative. Obviously you've been working on it longer, that sort of thing, but you're saying superior project. Could you articulate a few bullet points on why it's superior?
I just think that, for number one, the lots are larger. I think it typically, when you look at a community like this, where some of the development to the east of us are smaller lots, but kind of north and into the hillside. Typically, when you're dealing with hillside areas, you want a larger lot. You don't want a smaller lot. And 16,000 square feet isn't small, but it's also not as big as a 20,000 square foot lot. So we think that. I think from a marketability standpoint, we think there's a little more separation that the larger lots afford internally. So when you're in the project, you don't feel as you know, condensed at the bottom of the project. The development's a little, you know, the development footprint is not significantly different, you know, increased, but the fact that we had to make some of these lot line adjustments makes this site feel a little more compressed at the bottom, and the open space that is there isn't as kind of felt by doing that. And you know, the settlement plan had established a non-buildable area, which the original project complied with. There is, as mentioned, I think, a fire access turnaround that kind of is within that buildable area. But in terms of structures, houses, stuff like that, it's all with outside the buildable area. So, you know, we just feel that the larger lots are like I said, they provide more space internal to the project, and you know, we think that's attractive possibly to a builder as well. So, or not to a builder, to a buyer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there an opinion from staff or from our expert about the idea that in the EIR, it does state that only those impacts found significant and unavoidable are relevant in making the final determination of whether an alternative is environmentally superior or inferior to the proposed project?
When I was referring to the 8 areas that were affected, those are under the significant impacts without mitigation. So those are part of the effects that can be considered.
Okay.
So this doesn't specify whether that's pre or post mitigation, but your interpretation is that this is pre-mitigation.
Correct. And
And
part
is-
of the mitigation or adoption of alternative 2 are a joint effort at what our discretion is in terms of reducing those 8 areas with significant impacts. So that's where, when I'm interpreting this means before we're deciding what we do to mitigate, there are 8 areas of consideration in this situation. I'd also just like to point out that there's no definition of what substantially lessen means under the interpretation of CEQA, and that is part of our judgment call in making a comparative qualitative judgment here. Courts are resistant to put any number or figure or quantification on what is a substantially lessened impact or not. And so while the EIR does mention that it is a marginal lessening of those 5 areas, that is still 5 areas that are lessened, and whether we feel that that's a significant or substantial lessening of the environmental effect is an interpretation.
And this is one of my first times with an EIR, but in this capacity, but are in either alternative, the project as proposed or alternative, the alternative, are they required to do the mitigations as
In either
outlined in the
scenario, the
EIR?
MMRP would be required.
So no matter what, alternative 1 and alternative 2 will both have to mitigate environmental impacts.
Correct. Hypothetically, a project could be approved that still had significant impacts, but because we have a means of avoiding or lessening and bringing those areas into what would be non-significant effects, then it, under CEQA, would be advisable that we do so.
Yeah. In my head, at least, I'm comparing the two projects post-mitigation. Although your interpretation is that we should compare one post-mitigation to one pre-mitigation. Even though, no matter what, both will be post-mitigation.
I'm suggesting that we compare them both pre-MMRP, or consider that perhaps alternative 2 lightens the burden on the MMRP to lessen those, but yeah, you're correct in that either one would in this scenario include the mitigation.
So at least, I'll say it differently. I'll either compare them both pre-mitigation or both post-mitigation, but I'm not going to compare one pre and one post, because that seems unfair.
Right, yes.
Okay.
I don't know if our consultant has anything to add.
I'd say I agree. It's more of a judgment call because it's not prescribed as to how you have to evaluate. I will say that the environmentally superior alternative, selecting one of those is a requirement of CEQA. So if you select the no alternative as the environmentally superior alternative, then you have to find the next of those alternatives to determine whether it's environmentally superior or not. So it's a procedural thing, it's a procedural requirement. Where it comes down to making that evaluation is up to your discretion.
Can you clarify that? I'm sorry, you said the no alternative, so the no alternative would be the alternative that is not deemed to be
Sorry, the no
superior?
project
Oh,
alternative.
the no project, okay.
Yeah, so that alternative one that one is not that interested in because of the settlement agreement requirements. Yeah.
Are there, sorry, go ahead.
I will say often though, the environmentally superior project, there's more weight to that evaluation if there's a significant unavoidable impact under the proposed project, right? So if a significant environmental impact under the proposed project can be mitigated through an alternative, that usually carries more weight in the decision.
So you're saying that because they're fairly similar, that
They're
it
fairly
carries-
similar. The project's, it's a small site relatively. We're not talking, the difference between 500 homes and 400 homes.
Yep.
So.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff, our experts, or anybody else?
Okay.
All right, I guess at this time, we will open up for public comment. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning this specific item. The Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the Commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. And we will start with comment cards.
Chair, we have comment from Jean Pfaffinger.
Hello, my name's Jean Pfaffinger, and I live at 891 East Grandview. I am the abutting property on the west to, is it 6-5? That's the one next to me?
335.
Yeah. So I'm going to be significantly impacted. There's going to be 5 lots that touch my property, or possibly even 6. For me, the smaller lots that give me more privacy and less overlooking my property from above offer some significant benefits. Also, there was a failure to include a structure on my property in the EIR report, which is a 100-year-old carriage house. And I was at a meeting in 2013, and I pointed out the absence of that structure, and it hasn't been provided the aerial photos somehow managed not to show it. They've got enough tree cover that it's obliterated by that. And that is on the property line. And the privacy of that particular area is going to be really impacted because there's a window that looks right out on the property line and it'll be in somebody's lot. I guess there'll be a fence in front of it. There's also the concern about drainage with that because already I've got 2 probably extra feet of soil that has and plant debris that has raised the level at the wall outside of that over the years. I wasn't even sure who owned that property next door, to tell you the truth. Anyway, yeah, I mind that it seems like important information was left out, the existence of the structure. I am concerned about the hours for the noise. I think 6 days a week from 7 to 7 is a lot to ask a neighbor to take in. I'd also like to be consulted about the drainage that supposedly is going to be abutting my carriage house and how that's going to be done, and make sure that I have some input that it meets my needs. And that's about it. Do you have any questions for me, or? Nope. Okay. Thank you.
I always encourage people to look at page 26 of any EIR for mitigation measures that specifically list carriage houses.
And I did provide photos that show my carriage house in information given to the planner.
Thank you.
There are no more comment
more comment
cards, and
cards?
we did receive 4 comments via email, which were forwarded to the commission for their review.
Yep, and I've received those. Is there anybody else who would like to come before the Planning Commission and speak on this specific agendized item? All right. All right. Lot to take in here. A lot of materials. Who would like to start?
Sorry, I had a question actually of staff or potentially, can we rewind the tape?
We can always get further clarification from staff.
In reference to other projects or concerns with what I've seen in other projects in the community, the open space lot. So when all's said and done with this project, we're going to have new lots, a new subdivision in the community. We're going to have new lots. The open space lot, how is the titling? I kind of read how that is in the report, but can you put it in a layperson's term? How is the title held, and what happens with that lot once the subdivision is?
So the non-buildable portion, open space reservation, will be dedicated through easement over lots 4 and 5 of the proposed development plan. And so those will be the responsibility of private owners to maintain.
And those private, so those open spaces will be attached to one of the lots here, to 2 of the lots here in that are proposed. So when the subdivision of lots 4 and 5 were sold, the sale of lots 4 and 5 would have an easement attached to that open space.
Right, and lots 4 and 5 are residential development. So once they're sold, they will be owned and maintained for their residents, occupied, and required to be maintained in their open space portion in non-buildable areas. So they're not separate parcels.
So they're attached to those lots, clearly defined as non-buildable.
Correct.
And so the brush abatement would fall to
Private
those
property
properties,
owners, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Who would like to start?
I can go. I think the idea of looking at the number of lots are the same. I mean, we see that the determination of how much impact it will have one versus the other. I mean, graphically, I think the idea of an extra road and further going into the 4 or 5 areas, I think it's hard to argue that it's going to have a lesser impact or a non-impactful view into that area. And I can understand from the owner side of it that larger lots, potentially larger houses based on the FARs, of course, from their perspective, that is the more opportunistic way of looking at improved version of this. But I think graphically, it's just hard to make that case that it's worth that further impact into that area for me. And I can wait to hear everyone's thoughts on this, but it does feel like alternative 2 does have a less environmental impact into that whole existing area, from what I'm seeing. But going back to your thoughts of the fire lane that's going back there, I think a case could be made that if that's available and if something does happen back there, it does provide an avenue for, vehicles with, the fire apparatuses to get back there and to kind of be able to clear or to establish a line or something with it, right? That seems to be a case that could be made. So maybe I'll stop there, and then, I want to hear maybe your thoughts as well.
I would also briefly, has anybody had ex parte contacts?
No.
No.
Thank you.
I'll go. I see the difference by moving everything forward a little bit. You create a little bit more space in the back. I don't think it's a significant amount. The fire road, I have to agree, I think it's a good thing. The differences in the environmental impact seem pretty minimal to me. We're still going to have this, if you look at it as a whole, we still basically have this one parcel with 9 houses. A significant amount in the back that is open land forever. I don't see a significant difference. I would go either way on this. I have no problem with the original proposal.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I prefer the original proposal. The fire road is one. I can also see that being a road that folks in the neighborhood, either in that development or outside, either appreciate. I don't know if you're allowed to walk on fire roads. Are you allowed to walk on fire roads?
I don't think these are private roads.
No.
Street A is a private road, so the whole development will be private.
So, but
Okay.
are folks allowed to walk in there, or, I mean, there are plenty of private roads in our community that folks walk on.
There's no pedestrian access easement proposed in this development, so
Okay.
no.
But are folks internal to the development allowed to walk on?
Oh, yeah. It would be through CCNRs potentially.
But the general public is not allowed. They could prohibit the general public from access because they are private roads.
Correct.
Yeah. I guess I walk on private roads in the community all the time, I must confess. But
Don't out yourself.
like Casey Street in the canyon is a private road.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
So for people in the development, you're saying they would also need to get permission to walk on that fire road? That's what's confusing.
It would be a matter of the CCNRs for their management and use of the private road and fire road, I imagine, as well.
Okay. I guess I don't know what a CCNR is then.
So it's the covenants and codes and restrictions. It sets the use for the shared accommodations between the developments.
Okay. So the developer would be able to decide that. It's not like a fire department regulation.
It's a collaboration, so the CCNRs can come forward. They are reviewed by the city attorney's office.
Okay.
And staff does have the ability to review it as well and make suggestions.
Okay, thanks for those clarifications. In any case, for the argument that it is potentially good to have fire access more into the bush or into that area in the event of a fire, I like the fact that there is that fire road. I hear kind of two things. One, from staff, that P2 is about the same as PP, so maybe would be equally attractive to the developer. And from kind of the consultant, that usually the reason why you might prefer one project over another is that one is substantially better from an environmental impact. And I don't see, from my perspective, that one is substantially better in my interpretation. In terms of which one I would want to live in, we hear from existing neighbors that, we hear this all the time, but also from a neighbor today, that being closer to an adjacent property is something that neighbors do not enjoy. And so that carriage house being adjacent to these existing properties is something that an existing neighborhood doesn't like. However, there are going to be 9 new neighbors, and each of those new neighbors, I imagine, would prefer to be a little less close to their neighbor, just like everyone in this community would probably prefer, if given the option, to be a little less close to their neighbor. So extending that opinion broadly, I would see that most people would prefer to live a little bit less close to their neighbor if given the option. So I could see these being more attractive for those within this existing community, this potential new sub-community. So in conclusion, I think they're fairly similar, both from an environmental impact and from a development impact. But that in terms of the differences of the two, I think they're more similar from the environmental standpoint than they are from the development standpoint, in that there's significantly larger lots, plus the advantage of having that fire road in the event of a fire, and the potential, even if it isn't guaranteed, of some, access into that area via a road by pedestrians. Makes me prefer the project as proposed.
I would, I think the alternative 2 is environmentally superior, but I do think it's negligible. Negligible enough to warrant a larger lot size. I would agree with Commissioner Moran. I think most folks in the community here would prefer a larger lot size. I don't think we're changing the dynamics too much on the existing neighbors. A little bit, you have larger lots running alongside your existing property line, but I don't think it's that significant. And I think for the purposes of having a new subdivision that's going to meet the needs of the majority of existing and new owners, I'm not opposed to a larger lot size. I agree it's environmentally superior, alternative 2, but I don't think it's significant enough to go that direction. So, but I can be swayed still. That was my initial reaction when I read the report, the staff report and the EIR, that I didn't have a very strong opinion one way or the other, but I can go either direction, but I think it makes sense at this point, from my perspective, to go with a larger lot size and go with the original proposal.
I think the big difference between the two for me is the pad height. They're all relatively similar. They're like 10 feet, 6 feet difference on the bottom lots. And then when you go as proposed from lot 3 to lot 4, we're talking a like 40-foot elevation change. And when you contemplate that 40-foot elevation change, it feels to me like there is a significant amount of work that's that is more of an environmental impact to put it up on a hill that's 40 feet higher. I have the obvious concerns about looking into your neighbor's house, but we would address that later. So I guess for me, it's the pads being located at lower elevations in the alternative that also helps contribute to a lesser environmental impact. And it's, I mean, it's 750 square feet for the, like, lots 7, 8, and 9, right? It's really 1 through 4 that are taking the big hit on the size. That doesn't diminish it, but to me, the elevation of where you're putting this and the pad as proposed has a large elevation. It's at like a 20-foot difference. I'm sorry, not 20 foot. It's a 10% grade, and it goes from 860 to 850, the pad elevations, to the road. There are swales where lot 4 is up to 870. So the lot itself has quite a bit of undulation that's going to have to be, I would imagine, graded in some form to get it even flat. And that's significantly less than the small change of elevation that you see in the alternative. So, to me, that's the big difference. I agree that the lot sizes are not terribly different in size, but it's that elevation change in my mind that really shows some significant differences.
And specifically, you're talking about lot 4, right?
Yeah, lot 4. Because lot 4 is, proposed up at 860 in the original versus
It's located on the hill.
810. Yeah, it's way up there on the hill. And so I think when you build on a hill, there's going to be some, it takes more to build on a hill than on a flat pad. So to me, that's the big difference that I saw.
So if you're thinking about the sort of topography of the whole development, you're picturing a much more impactful view of the building going up the hillside. So,
Yes, but that's
and impact
and the impact of building at a higher elevation, right? Because you're also putting, another, I don't know, 100, 150 yards of street. Now I'm going to completely contradict myself and say that I bet if there's a fire running down the middle of that, you're going to be glad that you're up high squirting water down into it. But, and we didn't prepare anything that kind of overlays the two designs.
That would have been nice to see, but I'm also kind of thinking about the horizon view, if you will, kind of going up the potential subdivision. But
yeah, I think we're focusing on the environmental side of it rather than the view side of it. But just something to consider. That was something that played into my mind. So it sounds like there are no terribly strong opinions one way or the other.
I mean, that's the rub. They're so similar environmentally and tract-wise that it's kind of nuanced, but I think it depends on which one you weigh more.
And this is the recommendation for City Council, and City Council will have the right to choose which one they want. It's, right, they don't have to accept what we recommend.
I believe they will be given the options outside of Planning Commission's recommendation. may need consensus.
Correct. This is our recommendation, and what would be presented would be to them a draft of whatever we are recommending, but hypothetically they would have discretion as the decision-making body of the lead agency to do otherwise. And also, I would just like to comment that earlier you're talking about whether this is purely an environmental consideration, and while that is the bulk of what we're looking at, part of the CEQA weighing of alternatives does consider social, economic impacts as well, so that is a valid part of the discussion.
So I guess what we have before us are a couple of choices. We can, see if we have some kind of consensus amongst the commission to go one way or another, and work towards that. We could take a vote and see where it falls, or we could, I'm sure it's not anybody's favorite choice, but if people need more time to consider this, we could always continue it to a date certain and revisit this after people have had more time to mull it over in light of the material that we've heard tonight. Does anybody have opinions on which way they'd like to go?
I'd like to not continue it to a date certain. But
I don't
resolve
need,
it.
I don't need more time.
Okay. Then, does somebody have a motion they'd like to make?
I'll make a motion to approve tentative track max 65348 as the original proposal.
Seconded.
I would procedurally, we should make a recommendation on whether we certify the EIR first before
Oh,
we address
sorry.
the tentative. No, that's okay. Just to, if we could make a motion on that before we get to the tentative track map and its conditions.
All right. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So I'll make a motion to certify the EIR and adopt the MMRP and approve tentative track map 65348 in substantial conformance with the project as proposed.
That's fine. They could be two motions, but that's fine.
Oh, I have to do them individually? You want me to do them?
That's fine.
Okay. So sorry, I'm going to make a motion to certify the EIR and adopt the MMRP.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. That motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move on to
Chair, may I get clarification on who made the second?
I think you.
Commissioner. They did it at the same time, but I heard Commissioner Simcock first because he was
Yeah,
closer.
I heard Simcock first.
All right. Now you get to make your motion.
I will make a motion to approve tentative track max 65348 with the original project.
And Chair, before a motion or a second is made,
Yeah.
I have in my notes with changes to specific condition number 15 to reference.
I was going to make it as a
Oh.
friendly amendment afterwards, but
Oh, okay.
that's fine.
As with the amendments that were proposed earlier tonight.
Seconded.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next up, Planning Commission reports. Do any planning commissioners have anything to report?
I guess I'll be taking some leave in February. I'm expecting a baby, so I'll probably be out all February.
Congratulations.
But I'll be back in March, I hope.
All right.
I'll just mention there's a Planning Commissioners Academy
Oh, interesting.
in March of 2026 down in Anaheim, and I'm definitely probably going to attend, although it's quite costly. And I'm not sure if the city of Sierra Madre is a member of that organization or not. It's a substantial difference if you, I'm happy to pay for it, but it's a substantial difference if you're a member city or not. And it's LA, or it's Civic, I can't remember what the organization is. Are you aware?
Yes, we can look into the membership and.
I'll send an email. We can find it. But it seems worthwhile. It's like $600 if you're a member city, and it's $1,700 if you're not. But there's an other category. I'm not sure what other is, of $850. Not sure what the other. But I ran across that because Councilmember Lowe, now Mayor Lowe, mentioned it to me last year and sent me some material. So I thought
That's the same one then that we've been, yeah.
Did you go?
Yeah, I've just been gone the last 2 Marches.
Okay.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Are you able to present maybe an outbrief of that, like your top?
Sure.
what you
If
learned?
I do go, I will absolutely I don't know. We can talk about how share materials and key points of interest.
Great. Any other Planning Commission reports? Planning and Community Preservation Department reports. Director Lynn.
So we will cancel the January 1st meeting for Planning Commission, and the January 15th meeting will be the Planning Commission will be reviewing the design review permit for the meadows at the Bailey Canyon.
Did everyone receive my email
Yes.
with the plans for that project?
Yes.
Yes.
I can resend it if necessary.
Will you resend it to me? I don't know that.
Yeah.
Today?
I would, if you could resend it, I bet I did, but it kind of might have gotten lost in all
Yeah.
of the more recent public comments.
I could do that.
Oh, it was sent on it was sent on December 11th. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. Yes, I found it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
And, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that concludes my report.
Okay. And people should plan on a long meeting for that. We are limited to 3 meetings to review 42 homes before we punt that up to the council with a statutory limit of 5 meetings in total on it. So do that homework up front. Get your questions prepared. That will make that process most effective. Are there longer notice times related to that, or just standard notice for that meeting?
I believe it's standard notices,
Okay.
yes.
As far as I'm aware, that's correct, and I will double check that.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure we would notice the second one if it needed longer time. I don't suspect we'll do it in one, but that'd be great. All right, great. Then if there's nothing else from anybody, happy holidays to everybody, and we'll see you next year.
It's the thing of,